Hello everyone, this is the second part of chapter 2. Let us talk about running SQL queries and opening SQL queries. First of all, let me open an SQL query. It's actually an example from chapter 5. It's available and still on download. So I'm just going to open it and see what's up there and try to run it right away. So in late versions of Management Studio, it automatically recognizes what kind of database we're working with. Sometimes it will not, and sometimes you will need to toggle this box and choose the appropriate database that this SQL query is about, or just add this code use AP, and sometimes to make sure it runs before the rest of the query, you can add go. So in this case, it does automatically adjust the settings so that it makes sense, and we expect the query to work since it's a standard example, and unfortunately we see no output. So how about we remove one clause, and here are some results. Now, this query was a little bit stringent, I suppose, and there were no dates in between. Now, I should adjust the dates and then for the search, and then it will work. So what does this query do, briefly? GLA accounts, that's actually a table. Let's open the tables and see GLA accounts there. GLA accounts, columns, account description. Then we are counting something. We are counting those as line item count, some invoice line item amount. We're also summing up the item amounts, and we are taking this data from GLA accounts join invoice line items. So we're joining these tables together on the account number column. So whenever account numbers are the same, we are pulling the rows from both tables with the same account number and then choosing the data that we need. And we are also joining the invoices on invoice IDs. So we are also joining some data from from table invoices. And we group by GLA accounts account description. That means that for every value of account description in GLA accounts, we are putting together the count, how many, and also the sum of all invoice line items. And then there is some filtration for counts more than one, so whenever there was a multiple counts, and then order by some line item count decreasing. So this is quite a sophisticated query, and we will get there when we will get there, chapter 5, soon enough. But the main thing is that it works. If I choose to capitalize some of this, it still works. So capitalization is not important. However, if I were to mess up the spelling, it is. Now, be aware of some of the most important issues that come up when you try to execute a query. And sometimes as you are editing it, you leave something highlighted, and the studio assumes that you want to run only the highlighted part, and it was unable to interpret this query, and hence the error message. So be aware of things like that, and let us look at the possible errors and the kind of errors that we will see. Invalid column name if you misspell the column name. And overall, Sometimes, again, you do need to select the correct database for our from the database combo box, as I was doing, misspelling keyword or name, and omitting close quotation mark. So nothing fancy, but it does need to, you do need to be careful when creating queries. Now, here is how you can open the queries, and finally query designer window. Let's talk about that. So I want to create my own query. So new query, and I can find the designer. Yeah, query. Let's start the designer. Design query in the designer. Now we need to choose the tables that we want. For example, invoices and invoice line items. Here they are. We have both of them close. So I want to pull data from invoice line items and invoices. There is a one-to-many relationship between those two. So invoice ID is a primary key for invoices, and for invoice line items, it's a foreign key. It's also a part of a compound primary key consisting of these two columns. So I want to join together. I want to pull this and take the invoice line amount. So really, maybe I want to have a vendor ID. So vendor ID, invoice sequence, and also invoice amount. So here we are. There is actually a query generated here. It may be convenient to start with queries like that. They are very well qualified. This is the name of the table. This is the name of the column. It's also edited to what the Management Studio thinks it is a best practice. It's not always well readable, so sometimes you might want to change it and use a tab to line them up. So this is, I think, maybe a little bit more readable for me. And in any case, that's one way to create queries, and if you want to save them, there is multiple ways to save them. You can save as, you can save all together, and I guess this is all the overview that we have. One little tiny detail that I would want to add. I already showed you the server documentation. If you have a question, or if you want to Google an error that you get, you are basically ending up in SQL Server documentation or one of the online tutorials. SQL Server documentation is great. I used it in order to open the configuration manager for SQL Server.